What you are hearing right now is a text-to-speech voice generated by a computer. I chose this voice to maintain a degree of anonymity, but also to keep the spirit of mystery alive. If you don't know who is making these videos, it allows you to speculate and wonder. However, it also prevents us from having a real dialogue and puts up a barrier between the content creator and subscribers. As this channel has grown, I have come across various comments that question the use of this voice and its overall quality. Some people find it difficult to listen to and, therefore, do not watch the videos that I have rather painstakingly made. I always said that if enough people complained or took issue with this format, then I would reconsider the way I produce these videos. I would like to be able to personalize this experience more and connect with my subscribers as a person, rather than as a cipher. And I believe that time has come. From this point forward, I have decided to start using my own voice in future videos. So, say goodbye to this computer voice and hello to the real voice behind this channel.
Hi everyone, yes, this is my real voice, and as you can probably tell, I'm not Damon Lindelof. To those of you who thought I might be someone who worked on the show, I guess it's time to answer that mystery definitively. I have no connection nor affiliation to the series. Now, I hope that doesn't make a bunch of you want to unsubscribe straight away, as I know there have been many of you who have asked me this question in the hopes that maybe the showrunners had decided to sneakily explain the series on YouTube. But I think it's time to burst that bubble. I'll admit that I kept my identity a mystery because I prefer anonymity, and that's for reasons that I'll talk about shortly, but me hiding behind the automated voice only seemed to stoke the coals of speculation further. In a way, maintaining that veil between us has been in keeping with Lost and the spirit of mystery, but it's also created issues in how I communicate and how accessible this channel can be. Without getting into too much about myself up front, I can tell you that I am a writer by day, and now it seems a YouTuber by night. It was never my intention to become a content creator full time, hence why I wanted to stay anonymous. The internet is a scary place, as you all know, and when you put yourself out there in the way that many YouTubers do, it can be a big change to your own sense of privacy. And I didn't want this to interfere with or affect my day-to-day life. But as time's gone on, and due to the sporadic nature of my other work, I've actually come to see this as a fun and rewarding side hustle. The reason why I've managed to extrapolate and explain so much from the show is, in part, because I've studied it in depth and watched it many times, like many of you. But it's important for me to reiterate this point. These are my own interpretations and readings of the show, and people can feel free to agree or disagree with any of them, so long as you're willing to explain why, or at least have a conversation or spirited debate with me and others in the comments. My About page states this up front. There will always be an element of deduction and speculation present from video to video, because there's aspects of Lost that were intentionally and unintentionally left ambiguous. My hope is to be able to provide both canon answers and some more creative solutions to mysteries. A lot of the explanations on my channel come from the canon of the show and connecting the dots it left behind, but I still include theory crafting in my own interpretations. I'd argue that a good 75% of my work is based on in-show evidence that the writers intentionally signposted, while the remaining 25% is from my own brain. Perhaps my interpretations and insights have been of interest to you because writing and telling stories is something that I do on a regular basis. I think this allows me to put myself in the position of the showrunners and walk in their shoes just a little bit. I like to understand what the creative intent is behind something I watch, because what a creator intends is important if you want to know what it is they're trying to communicate, especially when it comes to solving puzzles and mysteries. There are specific answers that unlock the truth and the meaning of a mythology. However, that said, creative intent isn't the only thing that matters, because stories can mean all sorts of things to different people, and Lost certainly qualifies. I believe that, ultimately, you have to trust the tale and not the teller. I'll admit that I've used interview extracts and explanations from the showrunners here and there, but usually only to support and reaffirm the theories and speculations I've already put forth, and it's often to demonstrate to the skeptics that I'm not just simply making up my own headcanon about things. I want Lost Explained to be the closest thing to canon accurate as possible, so what you get on this channel is more than just fan theory, it's an actual resource. But to exclusively rely on whatever the showrunners have said over the years as evidence and explanations in and of themselves is unwise, because as much as I love these guys, they did give us a lot of double talk and misdirection, and because the mythology of the show was often in flux, their intentions changed and evolved over time. So an interview from 2007 about the smoke monster might not cohere to an interview from 2020 about the smoke monster. And after seeing interviews with Damon Lindelof in the past couple of years, in which he spilled some secrets surrounding the show, it confirmed to me that it's not always the best thing to have the author explain their intentions behind ambiguous storytelling choices. For instance, he confirmed in the Storm podcast that in the Sideways, David Shepherd was intended to be the younger reflection of Jack Shepherd, that the boy was a construct for Jack to deal with his own daddy issues and therefore allow him to be the father he never got to be. Now, I did put forward this idea in my own explanation of The Flash Sideways before I ever heard this podcast. That has always been my interpretation of that character, and while Lindelof's words validated my interpretation, it also made me feel a little bit bummed out, because it robbed the Lost community of their ability to debate David's meaning. While I see Lost as a puzzle to be solved, there are parts of it that are very much open to interpretation, none more so than The Flash Sideways, which turns out to be sort of a collective dream state, and as we all know, anything is possible in dreams. When Lindelof confirmed their intent behind David Shepherd, the whole fan speculation about David possibly being Jack and Kate's son was taken away from people. And while it's not my own personal reading of that character, I always did love the idea that a part of Jack survived beyond his death in the living world, and that Kate was maybe pregnant when she left the island. The possibility was there, even if some fans don't like that idea. But those that did like that reading could embrace it, and the writer's intentions couldn't be used as a stick to beat them with. So I can assure you that what you don't want is someone from the Lost Writers' Room coming online and explaining the whole show piecemeal. At first it would seem pretty cool that they were spoon-feeding us what everything meant and why they did this and why they did that, but afterwards, on rewatches and in conversations with other fans, the mystery and the debate would be gone. As for my approach, I've developed a pretty comprehensive overview of the story and the mythology, and a lot of the trivia surrounding the show, of which I would like to impart through this channel. I'm trying to piece together everything in a way that makes sense to me and ties off the loose ends. Maybe it's the obsessive-compulsive part of me, but if I watch or read something that is a mystery, I really have to try and understand it. Lost has been the ultimate puzzle for me to solve. It might be a good idea right now for me to fill you in on my history with the show a little bit more, so you get a sense of where this is all coming from. I was resistant to watching Lost when it first aired back in 2004. I missed the two-part pilot because I figured it was going to be a survival drama on an island, and that didn't really interest me. But a friend of mine got me to watch the next episode, Tabula Rasa, and it mostly confirmed my suspicion that this show was going to be a drama about strangers trying to survive on an island. My friend tried to catch me up on all the weird stuff that had happened during the pilot episodes. The polar bear, the quote-unquote dinosaur in the jungle, a creepy bald guy on the beach, the distress call that had been playing for years. And look, I enjoyed Tabula Rasa on its own terms, and it left me suitably intrigued enough to watch the next episode the following week. It just so happens that the next episode was going to be Walkabout, and like many people, that episode changed everything for me. That final twist about John Locke being in a wheelchair before the plane crashed was a profound revelation that was both shocking and incredibly moving at the same time. It was just so unexpected and such a beautifully executed moment, from the way Terry O'Quinn played those beats to Michael Giacchino's epic score. I've never forgotten that feeling of awe that I had after first seeing it, and that was it. I was hooked. Never missed an episode after that. If this guy could walk again after being in a wheelchair, where else was this show gonna go? What was this island? Who are these people? Why are they there? All of those questions started bursting inside my mind, and I just had to watch to find out what the answers to those questions were gonna be, as I'm sure it was for many of you. As a result, Walkabout holds a very special place in my heart, as does John Locke. That episode and that character are the reason I got hooked on the show, and his journey was the one I was most invested in throughout the series, so it was hard to watch where his character ended up in some ways. Ultimately, Locke was emblematic of the core themes of the story, so it was fitting that his introduction and character-centric episode was the one that got me hooked. Before the start of a new season, I would always go back and rewatch the previous seasons in the lead up to it, and once the show finished, I rewatched the whole series several more times between 2010 and now. I suppose the only real reason why this channel exists is because of the fallout from the pandemic. I live in London with my girlfriend, and when we went into lockdown in 2020, we found ourselves with a lot of time on our hands, and we were looking for some escapist entertainment. I'd been trying to get her to watch Lost for years, so this seemed like a perfect opportunity to introduce it to her, because she was quite literally a captive audience. But like many people, she'd only ever heard negative things about the ending of the show, and that made her resistant to sitting down and watching 6 seasons of something that is supposed to end so terribly that people are still writing articles about it to this day. And I'll be honest, she didn't get into the show right away. It was difficult watching it with her in those early days because I felt like I was forcing her to sit through something she wasn't enjoying. Frankly, she found season 1 a chore, and it was only once we got to the season finale 3-parter Exodus that I gave her a choice. If she didn't like the way the season ended, then we could just stop watching the whole thing and I'd continue on without her. But if she found it sufficiently intriguing and entertaining enough, we could continue. Because the last thing I wanted was for someone I love to really not like something else that I loved. I've always maintained that Lost became lost in the season 1 finale. The tone shifted more towards plot and intrigue and mythology, rather than straight-up character drama and survival stories. And by the end of it, my girlfriend had genuinely started to vibe with the show, and she said after Jack and Locke stare down into that abyss that she was good to continue for another season. I mean, she wanted to know what was in there, didn't we all? Anyway, we watched the show gradually over the course of 2020, taking breaks between seasons to let things sit, and then we finished early in 2021. It took a year overall to run through the show, and it'd been a long time since I'd watched it piecemeal like that. I only ever really used to binge it on rewatches. Lost is all I would watch over the course of a couple of weeks, and then I'd be done with it and get on with my life. But taking time out with my girlfriend to watch the show bit by bit actually allowed me to sit and think about it between episodes. I knew what was coming, and I'd spent many years previously mulling over the big questions of the series, and I started to write down my thoughts on the show as we were watching it. I knew that my girlfriend would have questions, and I wanted to be able to explain the things that she might want more clarity on. But rather than just dryly explain my take on the mythology, I thought I'd make it more compelling and create actual video explanations with visual examples. Yes, this whole channel started because I wanted to explain Lost to my girlfriend in a creative and interesting way. The first 10 to 12 videos I ever made were actually made exclusively for her benefit, and I started making these videos during our viewing of Season 5 and Season 6, knowing that the end was now in sight. After the series finale, like me, she was in tears, and we had a cuddle, and then we had a discussion about the ending and what it meant, life and death, and all the feelings that the finale kicks up in you. Then I asked her what mystery she still had lingering questions about, or what she wanted more clarity on. We watched a whole bunch of the videos I made, and she felt satisfied by the explanations and clarifications. She actually understood more of the show than I probably did after first seeing it myself, so I was confident that enough of the story was speaking for itself. But I'd enjoyed making these videos so much that I didn't want to stop making them. So I kept going, and I decided to drop them on YouTube because I knew the Lost fan base was alive and well still, and the channel had started to grow quite quickly to my surprise. I realised there was an absence of people trying to do this on the platform, explain and talk about the show, and if you're anything like me, you probably spent years searching online to try and find people who were making an attempt to explain the series in its totality. So I figured if no one else was going to do it, then I might as well do it. But if it weren't for the lockdown and that last rewatch with my girlfriend, I don't know if any of this would have happened, because it prompted me to share all of my thoughts about the mythology and the mysteries with other fans. All of those years of thinking about the series and what everything meant helped me to formulate a clear understanding of the narrative in my mind. I just never had the motivation to share it with anyone until now. If I can enrich or enhance people's understanding of the series as a complete work, then maybe all of those years of obsessing over Lost can finally be put to some good use. So, what's the format for this channel going forward? Well, I want to do more frequently asked questions, which are specific questions that people have about the show that I try to answer in long-form videos. They can range in subject from widespread misconceptions such as, were they dead the whole time, to very specific mythology or character-based questions, such as whether or not Jughead detonated, and what happened to Libby's backstory. I source many of these questions through the channel and your comments, so if you have questions that you feel like I haven't addressed or spent very much time on, then please feel free to chime in with them. Upcoming FAQ videos will include a detailed explanation about the pregnancy problems on the island. That is a video that many of you have been requesting for a while now. I'm also currently writing up a script for what was really going on in the hatch when the lockdown occurred, and a video about the real Henry Gale and what his possible backstory most likely would have been. So keep those questions coming. I have many videos planned into the foreseeable future. I'm going to make a Why You Should Watch Lost video that fans can direct their friends and families to in order to help convince non-believers to come and give the island a try. But I also want to launch an episode guide that goes through the series one episode at a time. And in these I'll explore the mythology, the mysteries, and the trivia behind each episode in greater depth. Now, this is a big project, and I want it to become a definitive episode guide for the series, so it will require a lot of time and a lot of work. Plus, I want to remaster my old videos with higher quality clips from the show, and with my new voiceover, so people who were previously alienated by the text-to-speech voice can now watch the same content without any obstacles to their enjoyment. So, my content isn't going to run dry anytime soon. I launched a poll a few months back to test the waters on setting up a Patreon. Roughly 21% of those who responded said they would be willing to contribute something, whereas 26% of you were in the undecided camp. Only 269 people responded to this poll in total, so I recognise that these percentages are only a small sampling of my subscriber base overall. Either way, it was enough of an incentive to go ahead and launch a Patreon. Now, this will help me expand the size and content quality of this channel. Contributing where you can will help me justify such an expansion, since managing this channel more regularly will create extra workload and require a larger commitment from me. I understand that times are difficult and finances are tight for many households around the world, so I know that this is not really a feasible option for everybody. And look, I've got no expectations of my subscribers beyond you watching the content. That's the main reason why I make these, is so people watch them and hopefully get something out of them. However, if just 5% of you were willing to contribute, I could dedicate more time to creating new content and building this community up for those of us in the Lost fandom. After the show ended, the places to go in order to talk about Lost, or to get explanations and have conversations, dried up pretty quickly. Most of us Losties were cast adrift as everyone else moved on. No pun intended. Yes, most of us found homes on Reddit and Facebook, but there was never a lightning rod place for answers and debates, and that's kind of what I want to create here. Most of us spend more time watching online content than actual TV these days, so if you find yourself anticipating a new Lost Explained video and you click on that thumbnail the moment you see it pop up, please consider donating to the cause. And those of you who simply value this channel and its content and want to see it grow into something more substantial and perhaps more meaningful, then consider donating. I'd like to keep Lost alive and help to combat the negativity that is out there, to counter this dominant narrative that the show didn't make sense, or that Lost was somehow a waste of everybody's time. This channel aims to facilitate explanations and discussions, not just about the story, but also about topics related to the story, such as fate and free will and determinism, morality and redemption, science and faith, philosophy and culture, and pop culture. And if there are those of you watching and hearing this who would like to see these things, and you want Lost Explained to be an ongoing project, bringing together curious minds and solving mysteries, then please donate whatever you can. I'm keeping things pretty simple right now, as I'm still feeling my way through this process, and I don't really want to overstretch myself too soon. As a result, there are only 4 tiers currently available. I won't go into too much detail here because I know not everybody will be interested in donating to this. I would like to add more benefits as time goes on, such as a monthly podcast Q&A in which I answer general questions off the cuff and some more exclusive content. But I would like to spend the first few months focusing on creating as much content for this channel for you to consume as possible. If any of this appeals to you, then follow the link in the description and choose the tier that is right for you. I really hope that you all continue to find revelation, edification, and entertainment value from my videos. This is the start of a new beginning for me and the channel, and I really hope you'll join me on this journey. And as the other guy used to say, thank you for watching. Until the next time, stay lost.